Hello everyone, this is Easy Natural English with Liam, where I speak to you with no script and no editing in natural English that's a bit easier than movies and TV shows. And today I want to talk to you about maybe a bit of a strange subject, but looking at strangers. And the reason I thought about talking about this is just because the other day I was driving to a shopping center and my wife was next to me and we were talking, and then I looked past my wife and I saw there were like two younger men in the back of a car, and they were like looking at me and clearly talking about me, or at least us. They were sort of looking at us in the car and talking, and I saw one of them, he turned to the other one and he didn't know I could see him, and he pointed at us and was like saying something, and I looked at him with a bit of an angry face because of course it's not nice when you see strangers talking about you. I looked at him like, what do you want? And then he tried to smile and wave at me, but I was a bit angry. So I didn't smile and wave back. I kept my angry face. But then afterwards I was thinking, I hope that wasn't somebody who watches the YouTube channel and recognizes me. I know I'm not that famous yet, still a very small YouTube channel, but there is a chance that somebody might recognize me. So afterwards I was like, I hope that's not the case, and I was just looking angrily at them. But I don't think that was the case. But if you do see me, in the street, make sure to just say, hey, I watch your YouTube or something. Because if you just look at me, then I'll feel a bit uncomfortable. Because looking at like strangers looking at you makes us feel a bit uncomfortable, I think. I think it depends on the country. I mean, here in Japan, usually people don't look at me because usually, Japan is a culture. Like in Japan, there's a culture of kind of not like really trying not to bother other people. Of course, there's this culture in every country. We don't want to go around bothering everyone. But in Japan, I think people are particularly worried about bothering other people. So, they probably won't look at you and make you feel uncomfortable. But it happened that day. Those were Japanese guys, so it can happen sometimes. But usually it doesn't. But compared to like when I was in India, I think in India, maybe as well, some areas, a lot of people haven't seen Western people before. So perhaps they're just very interested. But people, perhaps I don't really know. If you're Indian, then please let me know in the comments. But it seems like people don't mind if they look at each other. Like, I'm not sure because I'm not Indian. But if I compare to other countries, like, for example, when I was in Indonesia, I was in parts of Java where like Western people don't go there, like tourists don't go there. So people would look at me, but usually if I turned to look at them, they would be embarrassed. Like I caught them, like they'd be looking at me because they haven't seen many Western people before. It's a bit strange in their like village to see a tourist walking around. So they'd look at me, but if I turned to look at them, they would turn their face like kind of embarrassed, or maybe even try to say hello or something. But when I was in India, a lot of people would look at me and I would look at them, and they would just keep looking and like sort of not feel uncomfortable about us just looking at each other. I'd be looking at them like, yes, hello, can I help you? Why are you looking at me? And they would just keep looking at me, and they didn't seem to feel uncomfortable with that. So I don't know if that's like a cultural difference or something. So it's kind of interesting, this culture of what's normal to look at each other or not. Like usually in Europe or in America, at least most European countries that I know about, and in the UK and America, normally if somebody's staring at you, it could be somebody who's a bit creepy. So creepy means makes you feel uncomfortable. So if someone's creepy, their presence makes you feel uncomfortable, like, oh God, who is that person? So they could just be creepy. But sometimes, if someone's sort of looking at you and then you look back and then they sort of smile at you, it can be a way that people say like, hey, I like you. I think you're handsome, or I think you're beautiful, or something. Which I think is a culture that doesn't exist so much in some other countries. I don't know. I think here in Japan, maybe it doesn't happen too much. It might seem a little aggressive or a bit scary if people did it here in Japan. Maybe it depends on the environment. Maybe if you're in a club or something, it's okay. But when I was living in UK and living in other European countries, I'm not the most handsome guy ever, but I have had quite a few girls who would just be sort of looking at me, and I look at them and they're like, hey, like, oh, okay. But that, usually some countries that doesn't happen, but some countries it does. So it's kind of a funny culture, looking at strangers. How about you? Do you look at strangers? Sometimes it's fun when, they don't know you're looking. You don't want to make people feel uncomfortable. But in English, we have this term people watching. So you have, like, for example, bird watching. Bird watching, you go out into nature with your binoculars, perhaps with a book about birds, and you go and you look at birds. That's bird watching. But in English, we also have something called people watching. So a lot of people like to do this when they, for example, go into the city center and you sit in a cafe, and then you sort of look out of the window of the cafe and you watch people walk past, and you sort of like think, oh, what are those people doing with their life? And, if you're with your friend, you might even talk like, oh, do you think that guy's rich or something? Or like, oh, it's a funny hat that guy's wearing or something, and you sort of just talk about people. I think it's maybe not a good thing to sort of judge people, be like, oh, the guy's got a stupid jacket or something. But unfortunately, I think people do it, and it's kind of like fun. So sometimes people do that. I think Paris is quite a famous place for people watching, because in France, like a lot of the cafes, when they have outside seating, if you've been to France or if you're from France, you might know what I mean. Like a lot of cafes in many countries, you have the table, you have the tables out on the terrace or outside, and the chairs face each other. But in France, especially in Paris, there's lots of these cafes where you have a table with your friend, but the chairs actually face out into the street. So instead of the table in the middle of you and you're facing each other, the table is sort of in front of you, like maybe your right hand, their left hand, and you and your friend can sort of sit side by side, face out into the street, and you can talk to each other and drink your coffee and talk about all the people walking past. So it's like the cafes are set up in a way to just watch people go by. Perhaps it's, like I said, a bit more interesting sometimes, probably especially if you're by yourself, just sitting, looking at the table. It might be kind of fun to watch people go past and maybe have a look at their shopping bags and think, oh, I wonder what they've bought there. What is that? Is that a new shop? I should go to that shop. I don't recognize that bag or something, So it's called people watching. That's pretty much all I have to say about looking at strangers. Kind of a funny topic, but I tried to give you lots of different vocabulary and stuff, so maybe I should try some of these a little bit more stranger topics when they come into my head. So this one, like I said, happened just because somebody looked at me on the way to the shopping center. And if you are one of my listeners and you happen to see me in the street, then please say, hey, I listened to your podcast. Or if you're in like that situation where you're in a car and I can't hear you, maybe just do a gesture with like headphones, like, I listened to your podcast or something. So I know that you're not just a creepy person, like I said earlier, like a strange person just looking at me. then I know that it's because you recognize me. Okay, well, that's all for today. If you're listening to the podcast, please follow the podcast and please review on like Apple Podcasts, places like that. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe, like, comment. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a link to Patreon under the video. There's also a link to buy me a coffee. And the podcast, it's in the description of the podcast. And there you can help me to keep the channel going. If you'd like to take a lesson with me, there's also links there to do that. But that's all I have to say today. So thank you all very much, and I will see you all back here next time.